At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of OnPoint here on our mother station, Focus on Liberia. With me is our dynamic panelists, Mr. Michael Padmore from the ANC, a very astute, very brilliant young man who knows his subject. He's here to give us information as it relates to the understanding of public debates from the ANC standpoint. And obviously, on my right, in the right corner, in the blue, is Mr. Jimmy Eastman, a centrist, a man who calls it as he sees it. He holds no alliances to anybody. Obviously, I am Jerome Gaiman. I am a strong supporter of the CDC government. Let's get going. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be tough. Do us a favor. Please share the show with your friends. As they always say, your friends may not be my friends. We all have different network, huge network. Mr. Padmore, make sure you share it with your network. Mr. Eastman, do the same, and let's get going. Mr. Padmore, as always, I've always asked Mr. Jimmy Eastman to read the hot topics in Liberia. And usually how this works is that we do a polling, and the issues that are confronting the Liberian people that are more important to the Liberian people are the ones that we bring forth. So, Mr. Eastman, can you read what is on the minds of the Liberian people as it relates to politics?
Thank you, Mr. Gaiman. Good evening to all out there. Our conversation today will bring to light many of the issues concerning Liberians, and we hope to provide light on these issues so that we may be well informed as what's going on in and out of our country. On the first on the list today is Pro Temp Albert Cheer calls for due process and constitutional democracy. Okay, what is the Pro Temp talking about? Number 2 is America releases the notorious arms dealer Victor Bout, the angel of death. Are Liberians going to be victimized twice? Does the U.S. even care about accountability? Number 3, biometric voting option for elections 2023. Will biometric voting be possible in 2023? And number 4, the U.S. Ambassador McCarthy's and sanctions against Liberian officials. What does this all mean?
Great.
Those are the 4 topics today.
Great. I think there's the fourth there. Can you read the fourth?
The 4th is the U.S. Ambassador McCarthy and sanctions on Liberia officials.
No, okay, we have the government of Liberia approves. You missed that one. The government of Liberia approves CPP's plan to December 7th.
Okay.
That would be that's the 4th. Did the government of Liberia bow to the pressure from Louis Brown and with the rally end the suffering of the Liberian people? Because they're saying this rally is about the suffering masses, the entire being under the pressure, the entire suffering. So I guess, okay, then we're going to actually comment also on the Liberian chief of staff. He alleged could attempt through text messages from the old order. So we're going to delve into that to see what this is. What should we read from this strange revelation from the Army chief of staff? We're going to delve into it. Mr. Padmore, it looks like we have a full plate here. Let's start with number 1. The chair or the Senate Pro Tem, Mr. Albert Chia, or Chi. Albert Chia is talking about constitutional democracy. What says ye about constitutional democracy, about sovereignty, about the independence of our judiciary, our legislative, and our Liberian citizenry?
All right. So first of all, let me give our audience a little bit of background. So on the last week, on the closing of the Senate session for the Christmas holiday, the Senate Pro Tem had a news conference, a sit down, tit a tat, with the journalists, the Senate journalists, legislative journalists, and while in that tit for tat, he was asked the question concerning the sanctions that had been levied against three of President Weah's lieutenants, and basically the attempt by Mr. McGill and Mr. Twawe to run for Senate positions. And of course, the Senate Pro Tem stated that Liberia is a sovereign country, and according to our Constitution, until you are found guilty of certain crimes, you are free to run. That being said, look, this is a very unfortunate situation, okay? And for the Senate Pro Tem to just make such a blunt statement and try to walk away from it is very, very unfortunate. Three of the president's key lieutenants were sanctioned. After they were sanctioned, the president of the Republic of Liberia came out and he suspended these people and promised the Liberian people that an investigation. That never happened. Up to now, since August 16, nothing has happened. These people went ahead and they resigned. But it doesn't end there. Think, for example, if Mr. McGill was to get ill and wanted to seek medical treatment in the US, he couldn't do it. If Mr. Torre has family here, maybe even children in the US, and he wanted to come and visit them, he couldn't come visit them. If Mr. Cephas, who is a lawyer and does not only represent in the Liberian Bar Association, but he's an international lawyer, there are places he couldn't go and do certain transactions because of these sanctions. And the president has refused to address this, to hold an investigation, an independent investigation, and allow these people to clear their names. You know, and all we hear is, well, if you want to run for office, run for office. As if to say that is the end be all end all. We saw what happened to Brownie Samokai. Winning senatorial elections does not in any way mean that you will escape investigation or escape prosecution or anything else. So I'm hopeful that the president, upon his return to the country, whenever he returns, whether Christmas time, New Year, next year, Easter, whenever he returns, I'm hoping that the president will put together an independent commission that will investigate these people and find out what the truth is.
Great. That sounds like a man from the camp of 7%. This is how they talk over in the ANC. Well, not ANC because it's now ANC was a three-legged stool. Now it's a one-legged stool with Mr. Cummings. You see how Mr. Padmore cleverly sidestepped the issues here. And I'm going to bring him back to the center here. What we are talking about here, the pro tem is talking about constitutional democracy. What is it that this country is supposed to do? And not only did he talk about, but he quoted. He says, and I quote, he says, let me borrow a word or two from the Speaker of the United States, Nancy Pelosi. He says, this Senate is on an obligation to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign or domestic. We have to protect the democratic space from interference. The right of the people to choose their leaders and for the leader to serve in line with our Constitution is our domestic law. And only international law we have signed and ratified is undeniable, should be always guaranteed. Then he went on to quote the exact article of our Constitution. He said, in the midst of these arguments, Senator Chair quoted Article 28 of the Liberian Constitution, which demands that no one be punished without first being convicted beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law by a competent tribunal or court in Liberia. He said, anyone made to resign their position, thereby losing their livelihood and self-esteem because of an allegation that has not been proven through due process, is being mistreated, which is prohibited under our organic law. This is constitutionality, my brother. Mr. Jimmy Eastman, I do not want to beat a dead horse here, but this is moot. Your take on the issue.
Very good. Okay, but let's look at the objective of the Treasury Department sanctions here. They have observed that corrupt activities can undermine democratic institutions. They can also erode government stability and slow economic development. This is what they've observed across the world. And so the intentions of these sanctions is to curb that influence. The United States has spent millions and millions of dollars helping to bring Liberia back from the doldrums of civil war. And they don't want to see Liberia slowly slip back to those times. If we can remember all our civil conflicts, the Toward government was accused of rampant corruption, high treason, and other things. Similarly, Doe government was accused of killing, corruption, and other things as well. So there is a trend here we're looking at, that if we allow public servants to get away with corruption, we see it erodes our stability and eventually plunges the country back into civil war. So to avoid this, the Treasury Department has founded this method of sanctioning these individuals to avoid the countries slipping into chaos. Now, I agree with the Senate pro temp that one should be free to exercise their right to run for an election or any position. But these characters have these sanctions looming over their heads. There has to be, it's for our sake, for the sake of Liberia, for the sake of our future relations with the United States, which is our biggest partner, we need to have a way of putting these individuals in questions through a process, a due process that will exonerate them or find them guilty before we move on. The gentlemen in question were suspended initially and then later resigned. This has not erased their guilt, or this has not expunged their records. So in order to do that, we should have definitely allowed them their day in court to defend themselves. This culture of impunity that has developed, it develops because we do not address the issue when it's at hand. We let it go and it festers. So even though the Senate Pro Temp is right, but the problem we see is, why haven't these people been gone to court to exonerate themselves?
Yeah, but
Why haven't we put this thing forward?
okay,
If we had done this, we wouldn't be at this junction right now.
Mr. Eastman, you are a student of Constitution. You are a student of jurisprudence. If a crime is for someone to be charged, there has to be a crime that is committed, and the evidence has to be adduced in the court of law. The American government made it clear that this is not a criminal case. As far as they are concerned, this is not a judicial process. It is not a matter of due process. This is a perception. They feel that you are corrupt.
That is not true, Mr.
No,
Jimmy.
listen, the ambassador made it clear. The ambassador made it clear that this is not a due process. This is a political, and it is in the interest of the United States. Now, listen to this. Most people would say if the United States was serious about fighting corruption in Liberia, the United States and Global Witness, they said 66 of the 68 concession agreement was bogus and harmful to the Liberian people. And we had the evidence that 66 of the 68 concession agreement that should benefit this country, that should develop this country, is bogus. The United States has that. They said nothing about it, and our people are suffering. And here we are. You are talking about 3 guys. The United States made these charges. If the United States had evidence, they would have produced them or adduced them in the court of law, then we would charge them. But the ambassador said it in his last statement. He said the greatest sanction in Liberia will be the sanction at the ballot box. The Liberian people have to decide for themselves who should be sanctioned and who should not be sanctioned. Mr. Padmore, no, we're running out of time here, but you get the last line.
Okay, so pretty quickly here, there's a couple of things that you just misinforming the audience here. Mm-hmm. The first thing is that the U.S. government cannot enter our jurisprudence. The U.S. government cannot. The U.S. government has not been injured. For a party to take a complaint, it has to be injured. It is only the Liberian government that has the constitutional right and ability to take a crime, when a crime has been committed, to take a crime to the courts. Only the Liberian government. The U.S. government cannot do it. You and I cannot do it. It is only the government of Liberia that can prosecute crime. The U.S. government came on and said, we have reason to believe that a crime has been committed against the Liberian people. When you are ready, we will provide you with all of the evidence and work with you to make sure we get everything done. Nothing happened since then. And that's what has happened. Look, you're talking about Constitution. The Constitution states very clearly that every single individual has the right to what? To face the accuser. These people have been accused of something. They have a right to their day in court.
Who accused them?
They have been accused.
By whom?
They have been accused.
By whom?
They have been accused by the U.S. Treasury Department.
That's correct.
Okay, and the president took measures. The president suspended them. When the president suspended them, the president lay claim to it. If he had not taken any action, that's one thing. But once the president suspended these people, the president basically accepted that and said, okay, based on what I've heard, I'm going to suspend these people. That's against their right. Read what Abacha said. He said, anybody who loses a livelihood because of this is unfair. They have been mistreated.
Yes, but listen.
So these people who have been mistreated, they deserve a day in court.
They were not fired.
They were suspended.
That's correct. And
you lose your livelihood when you are suspended.
Listen, they decided that they were going to take another channel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have taken 2 minutes. We're coming back today, but let's go to number 2 on here. Mr. Eastman. No, I think Mr. Padmore, you start on number 2 here. We did number one. Jimmy Eastman started on number one. You start on number two here. Let's go.
Okay, so basically we're talking about the notorious arms dealer, Victor Boot, that the injured of death. The man that was associated with Charles Taylor in Benin Ure and Gus Copenhagen on selling arms to places around the world, including Liberia. Look, the U.S. captured him. The U.S. tried him. The U.S. convicted him. He has been in a U.S. prison. The U.S. government thought that it was okay for them to swap him for an innocent lady that was being held in a Russian prison. Look, I'm okay with it. To be honest with you, we have people that did worse things than Victor Boot are walking around in Montreal. Then we concerned about Victor. Look, until we start to prosecute our own people, man. When we bring the World Crimes Court and we drag Prince Johnson and we drag Bole and we drag other people there to clear their name, then we can talk about Victor and we can talk about Gus and we can talk. But until that time, seriously, let people need to leave them one alone. That's where I stand.
Mr. Eastman, before I
Yeah.
come to you see, I like the ANC folks. Mr. Padmore, who have been the first to jump all over this, for President Weah to rally everybody, put them together in a sardine can and ship them off sea because they are criminal. But Mr. Padmore knows that within his midst, the ANC, you got the two worst enemies of the state. We are talking about Mr. Louis Brown, the killer in chief, who was security advisor to Charles Taylor when they were dealing with Victor Bout. He is now the spokesperson. In fact, he's the prime minister for the ANC. And then you have David McIntosh, one of the most corrupt person that was selling passports, for whom a movie was made. These are the folks. You see how Padmore behaves. You see how the ANC people are maybe not even two-faced, maybe I would say multiple faces, like the bastard devil with the looking glass all over the place. You don't know which one is coming. This is how this is how these people behave. He doesn't want to talk about David McIntosh. He doesn't want to talk about Louis Brown, the injured of death number 2. So he said the Liberian people should let it go. This is the American government that been talking about accountability, that been talking about a democracy, human rights. You are talking about men who kill millions of folks and threaten to kill more. And Liberia has been victimized. And now Mr. Cummings and his talking points and his accolades, they are saying Victor Bout is an injured, not injured of death, but he's an injured, and we should leave him alone because
I'm right here. I'm dying.
He dead. I said, Mr. Eastman, talk to me about this guy that killed hundreds of thousands of folk being free, being swapped. Go ahead.
You know, this is a interesting story at best. It was in July 2004 that George Bush issued an executive order freezing the assets of Bout, this Victor Bout, Charles Taylor, and some relatives of Taylor, like Jewel Howard, her assets were frozen, and also Benin Ure. That's at the same time when all these freezes came about. And of course, Bout ignored the sanctions, and he was finally arrested by Interpol in Thailand. Okay, he had offered a supply of weapons to some rebels of Colombia. So initially, the charges were conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals. You know, but while they were processing that, it found out that he had negotiated to buy a plane in the U.S., a scheme which violated the sanctions against he and Taylor. So he was charged and brought down and guilty. In addition, you will see that even a UN-backed special court in Sierra Leone also found him guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity in 2012. What has Liberia done to charge this man that you're claiming we're letting him go? Sierra Leone has indicted this man, found him guilty. We have yet to find one person guilty of any crime in our country. All the atrocities, you and I both know there was atrocities committed, but we have yet to bring one person to trial. So why are we crying about the man we haven't charged him? Do we have any case to stand on if we haven't even charged him? Sierra Leone can say, well, we charged this man. But Liberia, we haven't charged anybody. So why are we making noise?
So you were telling me because we have not charged Victor Bout, we had a TRC report that named all these folks who were guilty of war crime. In fact, when you look at the TLC report, the two names that are grouped together, Victor Bout and Louis Brown, for aiding and abetting. I mean, terroristic act is there. The record is there. Liberia is peculiar. You are right. I have to agree with you on this because Ellen decided to take the TRC to the Supreme Court to prove a point. And she did. And the Supreme Court said that basically all the work that we did, all the work that we put in, it was actually a fiasco because you could not deny Ellen Johnson Sirleaf 30 years of suspension, and they threw it out. So that opened the gate for everybody else to say, well, if you can't charge Ellen, then you can't charge anybody else. So this is where we are, our history. This a country that was built on an experiment, and the foundation was crooked. The foundation it is as we speak, because you and I know the justice, I think was the justice in chamber at the time that took 250,000 Japanese guy businessman money, and Mr. Banks said he used the money to build a fence for the president's residence. Can you imagine? In a country that we call democracy, the justice ministry confiscated somebody's money without the due process, took the money and said it built a fence for the president. So yes, if you guys are saying, well, because our system is messed up, so we shouldn't apply any law, I am telling you that this man is bad news, and those that were killed at the behest of this man, they may be turning in their grave because there is no justice for the poor. Mr. Pat, will you close on this because we got a lot here. We need to go.
Look,
your man, Victor, I know you are a fan of Victor Bout. You are smiling because when Victor goes to the Louis Brown and David McIntosh, so you laughing because you score a goal, man. This one wasn't even a penalty. It was from the 18-yard back. You scored this goal. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So, in closing, when we speak of people like Gabriel McIntosh, and we listen to Jerome Gayman throw accusations at Gabriel McIntosh, let's not forget that Gabriel McIntosh was recommended by this president to be governance commissioner. Look, it's hilarious. I don't understand what you're doing in that country. The president of the CDC president, Weah nominated Gabriel McIntosh to head the governance commission. This is the most, of all the integrity institutions, the governance commission is the highest of them. Let me finish.
Good governance commission.
Okay, not their governance, but good governance commission. If you guys thought this highly of this man, you're stuck. But all in all, you are right. People are turning around in their graves. People are speaking. But trust me, it is not because of Victor Bout. It is because of all these other killers in Liberia who continue to walk free. All these other people who committed atrocities and killed hundreds of people, and nothing has happened to them. They have been allowed not only to live free, but to thrive. They run for offices. They amass wealth. They live comfortably. Yes, people are turning around in their graves. And the responsibility is on us as a citizenry and as a government to finally bring the war crimes court to Liberia so that Liberians can finally have justice. So that's what
Excellent, excellent. Mr. Eastman, this is your turn to go to number 3 here. We'll come back, we're gonna loop around, come back to that because there's so many topics. Let's go to number 3 here. Read it. Let's address it real quick.
Biometric voting and the options.
Yes.
In 2023. This is important. First of all, let's look at the advantage. What is biometric voting and the advantages of it? First of all, biometric voting, it is using something uniquely pertaining to yourself, either your fingerprints, your eyes, or something uniquely pertaining to you that nobody can duplicate. And so when you use biometrics for identification to vote, that means there will be no chance of duplicate one person voting twice, because there's only one biometrical signature, and that will avoid double voting. That is why it is a good process. It will eliminate any fraud. But there's been glitches, to put it in a modest way of implementing this system. To add to that, we do not have a sound national identification system. So before you give somebody a voting card, you identify somebody as a citizen and give them a biometric voting card, how are you first determining if he's a citizen or not? He or she is a citizen. So establishing a national ID card identification base was preliminary, okay, before you even introducing a biometric system. Then lastly, we're also conducting a census right now. That census would have given us the number of people in the country. Why are all these things are related? Because these three things can vary. Again, you can cross examine them and use cross references to come up with a sound data and database. But here we are trying to do something, and we have not laid the proper foundation so that we can do it the right way. The biometric system is a good system, but how are they identifying nationals? There's no national system. In fact, even your national ID card system should be also biometric. All right. And then even just to even get an idea of how many people we have, just to verify the databases, we can't even get that. So the question is, what are we really going to be doing in 2023? Who will really be allowed to vote? Will we actually implement this biometric system? If so, how are you identifying Liberians? So it calls into question a lot of things. And if we're not careful, we are in history of having elections rigged. I remember during the King administration, there was a notorious counting of votes that counted more than the elected populace. You have maybe 150,000 people, but you got 500,000 votes. That's ridiculous. We heard the same thing during the 1980 85 election, right, what brought Dole to presidency. There was another controversy where they said Jackson Dole was the real winner of that election, but the votes were voting was rigged, or the counting was rigged, and Emmett Harmon announced Dole, which led to where our civil war today. These things lead to war. So all I'm saying here is, why can't we do things in the right way so everybody will be satisfied? It will not lead us into a war that we cannot handle. And if we don't lay the proper foundations for these systems, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so even though it's looking minor, but I'm just looking at what might in my ball, roll into these things. Give basis for unrest and civil disobedience, and this is what we need to avoid.
Great. Mr. Patmore here. I tell you, the brother from Massa here talked about you guys putting into something, a circumstance that we can't handle. So I understand that. Now, Mr. Patmore, this one is not political. It's not partisan. We are talking about how is it possible for us to do biometrics when we don't even have when we don't have property identification system. That is to tell me that Mr. Patmore live a GSA row at this particular area, and we can tie him to that area, and then tomorrow he gets up and go to Grand Bassa County to go and vote for his sister, Yomni Kanga there. We can say, where is your address in Buchanan? When was the last time you were living in Buchanan or Grand Bassa County? So we can tie you to that, where they can't just bus. You can't just put 10,000 people on a bus from Monserrato, take them to a particular village. You win there when the people there didn't even vote for you. So people with money are actually buying it. They don't care for the constituency because your vote doesn't matter. All we have to do is bring enough people here to outnumber you, and we get what we want. Now that we don't have a property identification system, how do we come up with a biometric system that Mr. Eastman talked about? It deals with artificial intelligence, something, but of all, your address is based on where you got to have a point of reference, which is where you sleep, where you live. We don't know where. If I talk to Jimmy now, say, Jimmy, where do you live in Liberia? He had to go on the long tangent. He live GSA. You go to the Lebanese man, go right behind the house. Ask anybody for Eastman. We planted. Everybody knows us. Talk to me. How is this possible? To be very frank with you, there are two things going on here: the biometric system and this census. Because the census tells us that every 20,000 threshold, there should be a brand new representative in that area. From what I'm noticing, we are hearing that Nima County may have maybe 3 or 4 districts. Grand Bassa may have 3. Montserrat, another 10. We are talking about millions of dollars in wage bills. Can you imagine? We think they're making $2 million now, and our budget, what was it, 80% of the budget is recurrent. Now we're going to be adding maybe 30 more representatives that will now take our recurring budget from 80% to maybe 90%. So we will have absolutely nothing for development, nothing for education, nothing. It's all going to be on salary. So this particular thing here is more than meets the eye, Mr. Padmore.
It absolutely is. And you're only, right now, to be honest with you, you are just touching the tip of the iceberg. There are many more things that complicates the matter. So the question is it going to be possible? Anything is possible. Is it going to be effective? Is it going to be advantageous for us to use a biometric system? No, it is not. These elections are too important. These elections, they are too critical for us to use a system that has not been tested in the country. That we really don't know how this is going to go. I asked somebody from the NEC last week. I said to them, what if I go to vote and the computer tells me I'm not registered when I have been registered? It's biometric. It's computer. You know, machines have bugs. I said, what is the remedy put in place? They have nothing. Nothing has been put in place. In the US, if you go to vote and the machine is saying you are not registered or you shouldn't vote, you are allowed to cast a ballot. That ballot is set aside.
Provisional, yeah. Provisional.
Yes, a provisional ballot. It is set aside, and an investigation will be done. And if it is found that yes, you are a citizen and you are in that particular, if you fall within that district and you should have voted, that ballot will be counted. If not, you will hear from the FBI. You will thought I wanted to. But there is something set up for that, so that you are not disenfranchised of your voting right. Nothing is set up. Look, we need to step back. We need to clean up the voter roll. We need to go back to our regular stuff that we've done, because that has been tested. Our regular voter registration, that has been tested, even though it is not perfect, but it has been tested and done. We need to go back to that, and we need to have this election. And after this election, we need to actually have a census and start from there. Because like you said, without a census, areas in Liberia will be disenfranchised that should have lawmakers, wouldn't. You know, Magibi, Monserrato, Nimba, Bong, all these places have been expanding. Ganta should be split into three. 3 people should come from Ganta. That Ganta Tapeta area is saturated with people. It shouldn't be one representative from there. It is, everybody knows that. But if you don't do the census, then how do you do voter registration? You know, if you don't do voter registration, then how do you carry on with the elections? Everything hinges, you know, and it is important. We need to step back from it. We need to step back and get the census done. And after we are done with the census, then we need to do the voter registration and get the other things done and put biometric aside. I believe, and I will end with this, I believe the biometrics should first be tested during by-elections. By-elections with the senators. Maybe 2027 or 2026, when the senators come up for elections, I believe that's where we should test biometrics. And then if it is successful, then we can take it to national elections 2029. That's my position.
Great. Mr. Eastman, this is a very important topic here. Like we say in the AME Church, of all the commandments, this particular one, all the commandment hangs on this one. This one, it behooves us. I'm talking about everyone. I was concerned when I did the research to find out who was actually sponsoring the census and the biometric, and when I found out that it is actually being run and administered by the international community with our help. I think we our contribution is $3 million, and they foot the bill and the whole administrative piece and all that. That tells me that when we are talking about constitutional democracy and independence, whatever these international people say to us, it looks like that's what's going to stand. We're going to come back to that because we're running out of time. But let's go to number 4 here. The U.S., we talked about it briefly. We're just going to go around quickly about the sanction. The U.S. ambassador said there is no sanctions now. But he says something like the electoral process will determine. Okay? So here we are. This comes back to our constitutional democracy and international law. He has no sanction. He has no evidence. He has no proof. But he wants to hold this thing over the Liberian people's head. They're saying, listen, after you elect these guys, then we'll put sanction on them. But the good thing is, when Bill Twelve and McGill get elected, they're already on sanction. So he who's done fears no fall. We had no problem. McGill is going to be elected. Bekube Jr., Joe Weah Jr. is going to be elected in Riverside County. So, Mr. Eastman, tell me this. What is this thing about after the election, then we determine who gets sanctioned. I mean, to me, it was comical, but you have more international diplomacy notice than I do.
Well, Mr. Gaiman, the U.S. has to be careful if they don't overstep their intervention. They already went pretty far when they sanctioned the chief of staff and the managing director of the Port Authority and the SG. That is a direct warning to the administration when the person who is running the administration is sanctioned. So, any further sanctions, you would think it has to be tempered, because now it may be viewed as meddling in the affairs of a sovereign nation. As much as you want to discourage the possibility of the government falling into chaos due to corruption, at the same time they want Liberians to be able to manage their own affairs. I don't understand this concept of after the elections, then we'll see. I don't understand that at all. I think from my perspective, it is telling me that if we go ahead and expose these people to you, and yet you go ahead and elect them, they may take another posture altogether against Liberia as a whole. I think the thing we need to do now is really consider, should we elect anyone who is on sanctions? Or should we allow them to go and exonerate themselves? And that includes people who are already sitting in their seats, or people who are anybody. We need a way for Liberians to say, look, y'all accuse this person, but the person went to court and we found nothing on them. We need to do it instead of just letting it lie like this. It's not healthy for us. And allowing people to go ahead, we go vote for people who under this sort of umbrella doesn't bear well for the nation.
Yeah, but Mr. Eastman, real quick, the ambassador said people are bringing in names to us. People are basically recommending people to us. To me, that undercuts the ambassador's integrity, his stance. I thought if Mr. Eastman is going to accuse me, he would say, I know this is what he has done. We have the evidence. But the ambassador said, people are bringing in names to us every day. People from within, with our government. We are talking about when Tubman was president of Liberia, we had a PRO system where people who didn't like Padmore would just go and say, oh man, listen, that Padmore man is dangerous, or he wants your job. And you will go after him. This is what I'm seeing here. When the ambassador admitted that people are sending in names to us to sanction, to me, it didn't go well. Mr. Padmore, I know you're saying incorporate names yourself.
Don't fear. So far, I know you to be a man of integrity. So you have nothing to fear. Look, let's be honest here. Every Liberian should be free to send any name they want to send. Just because your name appears on a list doesn't mean that you are going to be sanctioned. The U.S. government is not the U.S. Look, sanctions. This whole program, this Magnitsky Act, okay, it is based on the integrity of the U.S. government. If you start to put people on sanction lists, and those people start to be investigated, and people start to demand evidence, the U.S. government is not going to come to that country or that justice system and say, "Oh, my evidence is Jimmy Eastman brought a man, so y'all go add Jimmy." No, that's not how it works. And if people start to find their way off the sanction list, it will dilute the importance of the whole act. So before the US government, and they fully understand that, so before they even bring your name up, they have done their thorough investigation. They have gathered evidence, tape recordings, paper evidence, financial records. You have to understand, this is not just one group. It is the US Treasury, it is the US State Department, it is the US Justice Department. There are multitudes of departments within the US government that are working together. The same people that are called Al Capone. These are the people that are looking for you. Okay? And you think they're going to come? Yes. And you think they're going to come with that empty hand? No. Let's not play games.
Okay. Let's bring this to an end real quick, because I want us to go to the next one, which is the CPP rally here. Then we can loop around. Mr. Eastman, I know I have a lot of regard, a lot of respect for Pat Moore. If CPP won election, let's say after George Weah, he would recommend me to use my expertise, so I have no problem with that. But what I want to talk about here is last 2 weeks ago, Mr. Snow was on one of our friendly sister TV show, and the question was, Mr. Snow, you were on sanction. What did you do to get off the sanction list? He said, "Oh, Madam Sally made some calls on my behalf, and they took me off the sanction." So this debunks what Mr. Patmore is saying. If the United States had a tight-clad evidence that is criminal in nature, United States is a country of rule of law. You cannot commit a crime and be indicted, and the president pick up the phone and say, "Listen, Justice Department, can you let Eastman off the hook?" And they say, "Okay, Eastman, listen, you raped this woman, you killed this guy, you robbed the bank, you can go." It doesn't work that way. So that brings us back to the Manesky Act when the ambassador said, "This is not a due process. This is a political. It's a perception of political thing that serves our interests." And I think Ronald Reagan and that said, "America has permanent interests and no permanent friends. If our interest supersedes your life, we'll take your life." And when you look at Saddam Hussein, there would be a typical example. When it's time for us to come for you, we'll come for you. It has nothing to do with due process of law. You are against our interest. So Snow said, "I did nothing." The president picked up the phone and worked the phone, and the next thing we knew, we all were off the list. So, Mr. Eastman, you were into diplomacy.
Well, but Mr. Gimme, you answer your own question, Prim, really. Just as there are criteria to get on the list, I'm sure when you meet certain criteria, you can get off the list. Okay? So we have to examine what those things are. Again, I know if you present tangible evidence that your transactions were not corrupt, of course, this should exonerate you from any accusations. And this is why I'm saying the people who are accused, they should have their day in court. I don't understand why we don't, even if it's not a court, we should have an inquiry. Okay, we are accused of this. Give us, this is the evidence we have, even if it's not even a full-blown court. But at least go through a process to exonerate these gentlemen from these accusations, so that way they can go on with their normal daily lives. I'm not a fan of intervention in our affairs, typically. But when we break down to the point that we are in a failed state, and they're not even fend for themselves. If we give you warning, a sovereign nation, nobody needs to get in our internal affairs. But this same sovereign nation could not handle its affairs until it went to the point of being a complete failed state, where the citizens were killing each other. It was just a bloodfest. So here we are. We have put ourselves in this position now, and those people who helped us, who helped revive the country, are telling us now, be careful. You're sliding back there. The same things you were doing before, you're sliding back there. So we have ourselves to blame. But and that is why it is important that we have a system that will prove or disprove these cases. Some people say justice has ran away from Liberia and can be found no longer. Are we going to keep our country like this, where there's no justice, where the courts, the judicial system is not functioning properly? We cannot build an economy with a judicial system that is not functioning. We can't expect to be making progress if we're not doing the fundamental things. That it's like you want to build a house, but you don't even want to lay your foundation correctly. So we will not go anywhere. It will be like this. We'll be living in thatch house. We'll be living in zinc ground until we start building a foundation. And the foundation starts with justice in the system, legal system. It has to work, and it should apply to everybody. And stop bypassing the justice system. Use the justice system to establish legitimacy. Use the justice system to show that you are people who believe in due process. But as it is today, we're avoiding it. And we're avoiding building our nation. As we avoid this, we're avoiding moving the country ahead at the same time.
Great. Mr. Eastman, this is a great topic here. Let's go. I want us to read some of our comments. We got a little time here, but let's go to the CPP, your rally that you are sanctioning, the 10-man rally. I know when the CDC, when we call the blue wave, we talk about million-man march, 1 million people turn out. CPP, what's going on here? I know you guys are saying the government bowed to your pressure. Mr. Eastman made it clear here the last time that the president, the administration should bend backward to accommodate these folks. This is a group that has no constituency. This is a group that has nobody. So they come out here and make all this big noise. So the president, the CDC, the administration decided, well, since they are not going to use, they themselves have been denied to use the stadium because of the counter meet and all of that, they will go to the ATS. So they have moved their event to the ATS. The CPP say, yes, we will not go into the stadium, but we just want to stay outside and do our thing. I see nothing wrong with that at all. I think the government needs to work with them and work with anybody else who wants to a peaceful rally, protest, whatever, as long as it's within the law. And I think CPP take credit for this one. I think they're doing it on a Saturday, isn't it? Is it on a Saturday, Mr. Patmore? If it's you are muted.
Yes, it's on a Saturday.
Great. So that is a good strategy where the business sector, I'm talking about the commerce, should be at a very, standstill. People will be home. You can have time to go out there and express yourself, mingle, get together with friends and families, register your dissent, register your protest peacefully. I think I have to give CP credit on this one. They didn't do it in the middle of the week to block traffic, to stop people from going to work. They did it on a Saturday where people can freely go and say here I am. Whatever they are talking about, I want to express myself. I have the platform. There's an open mic. I can go and tell them about my problem, and hopefully the government listen. I think that one. You have to give it to them. It was great, and I think the government did the right thing. I think Musa did the right thing by saying, you know what, even though there was a memorandum that there should be no activities at the stadium, but someone took money from these folks, and it is a contract. Once you have taken somebody's deposit and you guarantee that the person will have space, I see no reason. It is not their fault that the communication from the top to the bottom, somebody missed the mark somewhere. So I think it's a win-win for the CPP. It's a win-win for Liberia. It's going to be on a weekend. And I think it's a win-win for the police because during the week, they're going to have, on weekend, other than mining, government institution, and everything else, I think this is a great time for the country. And I think it was great for CPP to have the day. What do you think, Mr. Eastman?
Okay, very good. I personally don't like the vagueness of this whole CPP thing. Okay, rally means to bring together, to garner support, for something. Okay, you can rally to protest. People rally to protest. We are rallying to protest the illegality of certain functions in the country. You can rally for something, or you can rally for a purpose. Like Torbert used to say, it's rally time to lift people from mattress to mattresses, from mat to mattresses. Okay, so you rally for a purpose. So this other rally, retire. Okay, we are tired of what? The marginalization of people, the lateness in salaries, the it's very vague. But I like the what Musa did the other day, old friend of mine. I like that he allowed them because way you react to these movements, it can cause them to go one way or the other. Remember with April 12th, April 14th, the rally or the protests about the increased price of rice.
I saw you at that rally. I saw you at that rally.
No, I wasn't there. I was around April 12th, but not April 14th. We saw how that completely destabilized the country to a point that it could not recover. That April 14th would led to April 12th the next year. Had they avoided April 14th, April 12th might not have occurred the way it did. So your reaction to these social movements and these social protests means a lot. The other day when the students were protesting in OnPoint, the group that went behind them that hurt and brutalized one of them, there was a serious decry from the public of people being taken advantage of. And all they're doing is exercising their rights. You lose points, you lose voters when you're doing that. You lose people, you lose support. So the government was right, the administration was right now by telling them, go ahead and do your protest instead of causing any agitation that will have adverse effects. As long as you are there, no one breaking the law. There's no one's pushing the envelope and violating somebody else's right. Then let them begin, because but my thing is the CPP, it's a bit vague. We're tired of what? I think it should be more pointed, in my opinion.
Mr. Eastman, Mr. Padmore, I know you say we are tired suffering. And listen, I couldn't agree with you more. Since 1847, 1822, we've been suffering. Mr. Louis Brown said it. He said, during the war. He was driving, going to Buchanan, and they had an accident. He says he got into a hut, and the lady gave them somewhere to stay. They were about 10 in a hut. When the rain began to come down, he said the sky opened because it was a tax house. And they tried holding it up for the night. And the lady, wherever she could have to cook, she cooked and gave it to him. He ate it. He said he couldn't, even, I'm paraphrasing, even the dog would not eat in that plate where he comes from. He said he ate that food, and immediately he had an onset of dysentery. And he asked the lady, where can I use the bathroom? The lady said, under the tree in the rain. He said it dawned upon him, never have he known that there was such a life in Liberia. That he talked about the social stratification, how people were just stacked up on each other, and these people were so much at the bottom that they were basically buried. That's the kind of suffering he was talking. He'd never seen that kind of suffering before. So I agree with him. People are tired of being suffering. And when he got into government as legal advisor, security advisor to Charles Taylor, he did absolutely nothing. When the interim government came, he worked in the interim government, he did absolutely nothing. When Judith Bryant came, he joined. Judith Bryant did absolutely nothing. He worked with Emma Sawyer, did absolutely nothing. When Ellen came in, Ellen made him Minister of Information. He did absolutely nothing. Ellen appointed him to the ambassador to the UN. And when she was leaving, she told Mr. President Weah, you can't fire everybody. Some of these people have to stay on. And Louis Brown stayed on. And he was doing well there until he decided to vote against our interests in a Ukrainian war. Why the United States and everybody were voting against Russia? He voted with Russia. So the president had no recourse but to fire him. And the president called and said, you know what? You are incompetent. You are an idiot.
The president doesn't use such words.
This is what I'm saying. I'm paraphrasing here. Because anybody in their right mind will not vote against the United States in a political movement like we just did. Somebody said it reminded me of Tulba when he voted against the United States against Israel. You know what happened? My friend, Mr. Louis Brown did a complete blunder here, and I'm surprised. You are so desperate for power, ANC, Mr. Cummings, that you took America's enemy and you made him the spokesperson in the face of the CPP. A brilliant, good-looking man like you, Mr. Patmore, you will have brought millions of people to the CPP. Instead, they brought a murderer, a United States hater, a UN embarrassment, and you made him the face of the CPP. Now you say you are having a rally that you say we are tired. Mr. Patmore, I agree with you. We are tired. We are suffering because of people like Louis Brown.
It is the Liberian people tired of suffering. It is past time that something is done by the elected leaders to try and alleviate the suffering of the Liberian people. We can point fingers all day to who caused the suffering, who activated the suffering, how long the suffering been going on. That does not change the point. We are even tired with that. We're tired with the suffering. We're tired with the pointing finger. What we want now is as Liberians to do better. And if this government is not prepared to take on that struggle, that responsibility to do better, then come October, let them step aside and allow those who want to do such, do it for the Liberian people. It's as simple as that. The rally that is going to be held on Saturday is to make it clear to this government that not only are we suffering, but we're tired of suffering. Do something. This is not politics. This is not a political rally. No. This is a message to the government. Do something, please. Help us. Help us do better. Help us live better lives. Help us so our children can stop dying from preventable diseases. That women should stop dying during pregnancy because they cannot access good health care. That our young men can stop wandering the streets unemployed, begging to feed their family. It is dehumanizing. We all grew up. When our pa coming home, we're watching that road. And when he coming, all of us running to that road, Papa coming, Papa coming. We don't miss our pa. But when you that coming or coming, you'll bring plastic there. And in that plastic there, you either get biscuit or candy or something for us. It brings you great joy and integrity for you to be able to wake up in the morning, put your trousers on, and leave your house, go to work, and come home and be able to provide for your family. Liberian men have been stripped of that. We're tired. This is not about CPP. This is not about Unity Party. This is not about CDC. This is not about George Weah being elected second term. This is about the government listening to its people and putting a plan together and doing something better for the people. And in all honesty, if the government does that, nobody will have to worry about what happens in October because this government will be re-elected. If they just listen to the people and finally do something, they will be re-elected. And we all will be satisfied. All will be satisfied if this government is re-elected on merit and the people are doing better. And we can all go home and help that process. So we're tired.
Great. Mr. Eastman, I think I heard what this man said. I heard it before. Papa's coming home. Papa coming home with the bag. I think Eddie Johnson, that was her mantra. Yeah, Papa coming home. Things will be in our bag. And Mr. Padbo just took a page out of that book. We heard this before. That we used to say, we have seen this movie before. We know how it's going to end. They had no message. And by the way, for your information, I am drinking out of the CDC Sagamore cup. The president is going to be re-elected this time on the first ballot, first round. Mr. Eastman, you were right. You said it's too vague. Mr. Padmo is saying now they should step aside. So I think you were right. They don't have a message. They started with we tired. Now he said they should step aside. Mr. Eastman, real quick before we go to our roundtable here and start calling names and congratulating our friends that called, I think you took the word right out of my mouth. You said it's too vague, it's not defined, and now here we are, breaking news. Mr. Padbo is saying it's about that the president can't do the job, let him step aside. Mr. Eastman.
Yeah, even though I'm not an expert in politics or social affairs, but as a scientist, I know you have to craft your message, and you have to always define your thesis before you go on with the experiment. And as much as there is a tiredness, or people have become wearisome of things that are going on, you still need to articulate the things that need to be addressed. I think messaging is a serious, a very crucial part of social movement and social addressing the social issues. And the way it is, as it is today, they're going to go there, and people are going to assemble, and they're going to say, well, we're tired. And when they come home, and the little children will be home and say, Papa, you not come? Yeah. Where you come from, Papa? I said, well, I come from the rally. What the rally for, my Papa? I said, the rally said, we tired. Why you tired with, Papa? Then you have to explain it. You have to have a message that resonates, that hits the point on the nail, and not be as much as we do know what they're trying to do, but they should have done a little better job. But again, being a novice in social affairs, I may be off point here. So, but all I think they missed an opportunity. And these kind of opportunities are rare. And you're taking people out of work. Businesses don't work when you see these rallies. Some of them, as long as they're not interrupting the commercial affairs of people, I think it's very important. But if you're not going to do something concrete, you're not going to do something meaningful. If you're going to do the same thing again and again and again, according to Mr. Alex Cummings, then what's the use? But I'd like to see better messaging. If you're going to do something like this, I think the message has to be much clearer.
Great.
If I may point something out to Mr. Eastman really clear, just to make sure our viewers are found. So Mr. Eastman, what we've realized is that from different perspectives in life, people are tired of different things. So the way that day is going to go is that people are going to assemble from all walks of life in Liberia. And there is going to be a stage, and people are going to be given a mic, different groups representing different groups. And those groups are going to speak to the things they are tired of. And all of that information is going to be compiled into one document. And this is just the beginning. The rally is just the beginning. We also intend to address our lawmakers on these things that we are tired about. But in order to do that, first you have to invite the people to rally together. Like you said, when you're rallying together, it's for a purpose. That's why we are coming together. So people can state what they are tired of. So the younger boy will say what he's tired of. The market people will state what they're tired of, and on and on and on. And all of that information will be gathered, compiled into a group. And not only will it be complaints, but we also intend to present to our government also answers that we believe that if they take into regard, can help improve Liberia. So I just wanted to make that part clear.
Great. Mr. Patmore and Mr. Eastman, one of the things that we are looking at here, let me chime in real quick. Everybody knows that this is Louis Brown Dylan movement. Use a rally to put your name out there, and 2023 comes around, and then Louis Brown is now running for the Senate or running for a district where he can get a permanent pay. This is what this is all about. This is not about Alex Cummings. Alex Cummings know how to gather data. They know how to do referendum. They know how to do survey. In fact, in one of his commercials today, he said he has gone from the hills of Nimba to the shores of Grand Jita to Lo-Fi. He done all of those. He didn't collect no data. He didn't know that people are suffering. This is Louis Brown Dylan movement. When they had the December 7th, the June 7th protest, and Dylan came out, and they all the frivolous thing. When I become senator, if they pay me 100,000, I'm going to take 5,000 and get 95,000 back to the people because I don't need that much money. This is Louis Brown coming out time. This time around, the folks are not stupid. They know what's happening. Louis Brown, from this particular event, he can run for president. He can run for senate. He ain't going to win nothing. Now, let's go to this. Mr. Patmore, I want you to please recognize all of those who are chiming in. You can see the names that you call the names out. And then, Mr. Eastman, you will read few of the comments out. I mean, Mr. Eastman, you will read the comments, but Mr. Patmore will go ahead and greet our folks. Thank them for calling in. I know there are so many, but at least we can do a few. I know my homeboy from Hartford, right here. Mr. Hall is looking at me. I know him very well. From 40 Buchanan, my homeboy there. He's a faithful here, but go ahead and give a shout out to those guys.
So yeah, I want to give a shout out to J Raw, Sam Wallow, River Says Pro. Those guys are frequent viewers. Mr. Nathan Williams, Cristiano King, Emmanuel Bra, who is watching on the YouTube. Anthony Jala, also known as DJ Lombert, is also watching with us. Miss Glendy Jean Junius is watching. Edward Hall is watching. Solomon Baca Reeves is watching. We also have Kennedy Corey is watching. Miss Mariah Seaton is also watching. Josephus and Emmanuel Jackson. Just want to give you guys a shout out. Thanks for joining us this evening. So yeah, those are the people that are watching with us right now and commenting.
Okay, Mr. Eastman, let's read some of the comments real quick.
From CMB J Raw. How can you be part of this program? I'm not sure. Just call in if you want to join us. You can join us at any time. Sam Willow, how is that bowing to pressure? I think he was alluding to that the Justice Minister conceded to allow them to do their protests. He said, haven't other protests been approved in the past? Okay, so that's Wallow's point. The next one, are they bringing it up?
Yes.
U.S. Sam Wallow again. U.S. does care about accountability. That's why Victor was in prison. Fast forward more than a decade later, and international stakes, U.S. needed to react to current realities. Okay, River says, Pro, you cannot have investigation in Liberia. Most of the charges were international. Those entities named in the indictment must come forward too. Cristiano King, Brother Eastman, Liberia has issue with war crime cases because amnesty was granted to all Liberian warlords. I didn't know that. I guess by allowing Ellen to run, set a precedent that what the brother Cristiano King is saying here. You just granted everybody amnesty by granting Ellen Johnson Sirleaf the opportunity to run. He make a good point there. Emmanuel Bra, the U.S. government and the Western world are pressuring the GOL under President Weah to establish a war and economic crimes court because they favor Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She's darling girl of the U.S. So Emmanuel Bra is coming up with a counter argument. Sam, sounds like the CPP is afraid of election day. Kennedy Curry, tired, suffering, that parents can't pay school fees, families can't put food on the table, young people can't get jobs, more sellers than buyers, and the list goes on. So Kennedy is bringing a laundry list of the tired with Mariah Seaton. There's a 67% increase in my financial as well as in kind donations to Liberians in Liberia and suffering. Solomon Baca Reeves said Mr. Lewis Brown did not advocate for the Liberian people when he served as an ambassador to the UN, where he could have met with investors to create jobs in Liberia.
Okay.
Glenda Jane Genius, Liberia in trouble.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough. Let's go around. I think we're doing very well on time. Mr. Eastman and Mr. Patmore, this is a great exchange of ideas. We have always said it. If we have had these forums back then, where there is no guarantee, we can tell you that Liberians are now communicating. People are now talking. Friends, family, foes, even foes. But I want to also tell you this, that when my Uncle Tom Wowoyu and the rest of the guys went to the Accra Peace Accord. One of the main pillars of that peace accord was that the blanket amnesty, that everybody that took part in the war were granted amnesty to bring this war to an end. And in April 8th, 2004, I was with Mr. Jack Klein at his office, the old German embassy. And they were talking about dividing the Liberian government into segments where Laura had the Ministry of Finance and all of that, and all of these people had different segments of the government. That was the beginning of our problem because these people were given 18 months to loot. They amassed so much wealth that when time came for election, they used that money to run, and they ran and won. So our mistakes are multiples, and they are layered and layered. It didn't make sense to me. But then Prince Johnson said there was not Prince Johnson, but Sawyer said there was a precedent for this. In 1980, during the formation of the new constitution, they gave amnesty to everybody that killed Tolba, everybody who got killed there. They gave everybody amnesty. So Liberia has been on this. It's like a slippery slope of I think Mr. Patmore talked about it in Sierra Leone. The folks in Sierra Leone stood up and said, if you took part in any form in a war, you are not going to take part in governing or anything that has to do with it. Whatever you got during the process remain, but you are not part of the new dispensation. That didn't happen in Liberia. So here we are, Prince Joseph is saying, y'all told me that we all, for the war to stop, we all need to put down our arms, and we collectively made the case. You are going to come after us, and you said, no, everybody is forgiven, and it's enshrined in the Ghana Accord, Peace Accord. So, Mr. Patmore, this is where we are. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is there's 2 points. The first thing is that the Ghana Accord is not the Constitution, unfortunately. The second thing is that the peculiar thing about amnesty is that amnesty is given to guilty people. And people don't know this.
Sure.
Amnesty is given to guilty people.
That's correct.
So in order for you to get amnesty, first you have to be pronounced guilty, or you have to state that, yes, indeed, I'm guilty. I throw myself at the mercy of the court, and then we can talk amnesty. These people have never done this. And this is all part of the process. Everybody think War Crimes Court mean and everybody going to jail. No. But War Crimes Court first will bring out the truth. There will be, a justice process. And if you are found guilty, yes, you might be given amnesty in exchange. So you know what? We might let you go, but you can never run for office again. That's the exchange. You can do that constitutionally. But for you to just throw a blanket and say, happy, will not take you to court, will not allow you to face your accuser, but we will just tell you for 30 years, you can't, no, you can't, that's guilt, that you are pronouncing a guilty verdict on somebody that has not been tried. And that is what Ellen Johnson took to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court to Ellen Johnson, you're absolutely correct. They should have dragged Ellen Johnson to court, tried her, found her guilty of giving $10,000, which basically is sabotage and sedition, and then said to her, "Now we won't kill you, we won't jail you, but for the rest of your life, you cannot run for any elected office or be appointed by any elected person." Well, everybody are going to be fine, but that's where we are right now. That ship, that milk already wastes, and we can't cry over spilled milk. But moving forward, we have to do something, because people like Louis Brown is still being accused of war crimes. And the question is, do you isolate him from the body politics? Do you strip him of his rights, even though he has never been found guilty of anything? The same thing, it's ironic that the same people that are saying that McGill got all right to run are the same people that are saying Louis Brown should shut up and sit down. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Okay.
You can have your cake and eat it
Okay,
too.
guys, we're running out of time. Mr. Eastman, 1 minute closing, then we'll go back to Mr. Patton for closing, so we can be out of here. We'll be out of here.
Mr. Game, I'm going to take the devil's advocate. Anytime you talk about war crimes and Liberian War Crimes Court, the first name you always hear is PYJ, Prince Yomi Johnson. But I want to tell you my personal experience with Prince Yomi Johnson. From the time I met that man when he captured LEC where I was working, many times I had to be in his company as we had to restore power to across the bridge there. And he said from the day one that he did not want to become president. In fact, he wrote a book, The Guns That Liberate Must Not Rule. Prince Johnson always maintained that none of the warlords should be allowed to power. But we allowed Charles Taylor to go to power. We allowed Ellen Johnson to go to power. But now you want to get after him for war crimes. There are so many mistakes I honestly believe we made in the past and we will continue to make. But we can't have two sets of standards, one for one person and one for that. We need to be consistent with anything we do. If it's going to be like this, then it should be like that for everybody. It can be like this for some and that different for others.
Excellent.
And that is what probably brought us to today. I believe the forefathers who founded the country, we didn't have a bad foundation. We have people making mistakes all the time. I agree, because we are fallible being human beings. But that doesn't mean we can't correct ourselves. And one way to correct yourself is what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Stop playing favoritism. Stop harboring, protecting your own people, and then pointing finger at somebody who is equal as guilty as the people on your side. Excellent. If we don't stop it, I don't think we're going to go anywhere.
Thank you. Mr. Padmore, 1 minute closing.
Thank you so much. It's always a joy to join you guys and have a spirited debate. And I think all of our topics today have enlightened our guests, our viewers on what is the political atmosphere in the country. What I will spend the rest of my 1 minute is talking about the rally that is going to be held this Saturday. We tire suffering. Like many have said, if you enjoy in Liberia, if your house rent is paid, your children are in school, and you have money in the bank, they rally not for you. Okay? Their rally is for the people who cannot afford to send their children to school, so their children are sitting home. This rally is for people who barely know where the next rice cup will come from. And yet, the price of rice is being increased on top of the suffering. This rally is for people who graduated from the University of Liberia and they walk in the streets of Monrovia because they can't find a job. This rally is for our young women, brilliant people who are being solicited for sexual favors before they will give you small thing to sit down and say, okay, hold the other job. This rally is for you. Come out. This is not political. The people the government has to know you're serious so they can take action. The government has to know your plight. Joria cannot read your mind. You have to speak so he can hear you. And you have to speak loudly so he can know that you're serious. This rally is for you. Come out. Come out. The face of this protest. The face of this protest is not Louis Brown. It's not Alexander Cummings. The face of this protest is the suffering Liberian people. That is the face of this protest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to an end of a brilliant. This is the best platform on planet Earth, and I always want to tell you guys, This is a movie that we are seeing. You know, when Mr. Patmore, I think your family know a few things about theater, about cinema, about movies, Sinbad, the Batman, all that other stuff. We've seen some of the movies over and over and over. Man, I went to your old man, your uncle's theater. I'm gonna watch some of the movie 4 or 5 times. I could tell you exactly on cue what was happening. This is what's happening here. This is a repeat of the June 7 protest. Mr. Louis Brown was fired by President Weah. He's going to be running for office. This is Louis Brown coming out party. What Darrell Dillon did to you, don't let Louis Brown do it to you. Don't let him come out here, use your pain and your suffering for his elevation and his platform to run for the Senate or run for representative in Liberia. We've seen this movie before. We know how it's going to end. By the way, the president is in town. He's in South Beach. He's in Miami. If you have time, give me a call. We can hang around. And also on the 13th, go to Washington, D.C. and go to the town hall meeting. Meet the president. Tell the president that you are tired. Tell him why you are tired. That's the forum. This is where you need to go to tell the president, Mr. President, this is what's happening. But not to make somebody's career based on your pain and your suffering. Next Sunday, same time, same place. Whether you are a sedition, you are a CPPN, you are a Liberty Party saint, wherever you come from, we are all Liberians. And you have the right to say so in what's happening. See you next Sunday, same time. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the argument. Beautiful, beautiful, and entertaining. Ladies and gentlemen,
we are Liberians. Liberia is our home.